This is Master Colonel Baker. He has been around forever and ever. He's one of those guys that looks like a master, doesn't he? I mean, I don't really look like, I've got kind of a thing going, but he's got the look. And I've always envied him that. You know, he looks like a grandmaster. But he's one of those people I've always envied because I believe that if you want to be a true master, you surround yourself with masters and then strive to be worthy. If you would be a strong leader, you surround yourself with strong leaders and then strive to be worthy. I've always tried to do that, even in my Tai Chi class. And I talk about his Tai Chi because that's what most of us remember him for. But he's just a flat out amazing martial artist, period. Because he was one of the first Tai Chi guys that insisted that the Tai Chi people have to fight. Because back in that day, they just did meditation. And he'd always say, well, Master Brown, don't we fight? We're part of the school too. And he assisted me in the class for so many years that there becomes a point when you realize that I'm not really needed here. Because I used to enjoy stepping back and letting him, could you step forward and talk to the group? And I find myself not stepping back in because I was enjoying what I heard and I was learning. And I think that's one of the true joys in teaching, is to see your students evolve to a point where you're now learning from them. Yes, that's what I said. Where you start to learn from them. I used to have a board up with all of my top students, and there's been a lot of them. And I used to tell people, and again, I'd say this is the challenge of thinking that I'm coming across with some kind of ego, but people would say, who is the best student in your school? And I would look up at my board and I would say there are at least 30 students up there that I think are better than I ever was. And that's saying a lot because I was a mean rascal. I mean, it's not that I didn't think I was good.
Was?
Yeah, we try to hang. But because I put in the time. We worked out 10 in the morning till 10 at night. 6 days a week. There was a period when I lived in the back of the school. And we trained all day and all night. And when I say trained all day and all night, this gentleman and I taught at a time when we taught every student individually, one at a time, for a half an hour, 45 minutes each. And in a 12-hour day, you can teach 24 classes. And the two of us would teach 22, 23 classes a day, 6 days a week. So we trained all the time. So when I say that I thought my martial arts was amazing, and in saying that, there were at least 30 of my students that were better than I was even in my prime. And I looked at that and I thought I was so proud. Because these guys have evolved into something way more than I was able to give them. And it makes you feel really, really good. This is one of those students, this gentleman and another Tai Chi guy named Shifu Macau, that secretly I always admired for their knowledge. And if I wanted advice, this is one of the guys I would think to call first. They said, but is he your student? Yeah. He's my student, but I also consider him one of my teachers, one of my advisors. So we honor you and we induct you into this Shaolin Wushu Hall of Fame. You can give it to people. You can stand back over there, Shifu. You can stand back. Let me let him speak.
He knows this is a fatal mistake.
2 minutes on
That's why I stopped teaching. Let me give you a real deal on this thing, you know. When I first started, and most of us in the old days, we had a history in karate. That's where we all started. We were all dropouts from karate. And my first day was indeed a private lesson. My first day with Master Brown up there on Georgia Avenue. He worked me for an hour and a half, trying to get me to puke my guts out or fall on the floor on my face so I would never come back again.
We're nicer people now.
I sucked it all in, got out to the alley, and I let my lunch go. And then it was the first day of class. I had to fight each one of the disciples. And this is what we did back then. There was no insurance to cover you or anything else. They would sit there and ring your bells and let you know who Alpha Wolf was in this class. And everyone was better than I was. But it gave you something to look forward to. Because one day, it's just like that whole cycle. That mythical cycle, that legendary cycle that Joseph Campbell talked about. One day, I wanted to beat every one of them back, you know? But the proof of the man, and when Master Brown asked me to begin teaching Tai Chi, I had already been in the external. But back then, we didn't have belts. You didn't fight belts. You fought the man that was in the ring. You said, you found out quickly how good you were. If you got out in there and Shifu Irvin's eyes half closed, and he was just like in a trance, and you knew the cobra was coming at you quickly. You said, but again, to talk about myself is nothing. I can't talk about the school, Master Brown and the school, as an entity. It's not about just martial arts, it's a social network. It's a spiritual endeavor, not a religious. Okay, so we didn't serve any Kool-Aid here tonight. But it gives you a place where, like, there is no other place like this whole thing. To just tell you how good we got. When I went to take I needed a break from studying martial arts and everything else. So I went to take a a karate class, Taekwondo, from an instructor at Quantico. He taught FBI agents, law enforcement officials from all over the world. I'm in Tai Chi now. And after the first class, he came up to me and said, have you studied before? A little bit. I wanted to keep small, all right? And he said, no, you've studied more than I said, what did you study? I studied Tai Chi. And he said, no. Because he could hear the sound of my kicks and punches across the gym compared to the other 40 people in there, right? And he knew. But he said, okay, I tell you what, you're too good to be here. I'm going to make you a black belt. Nobody ever did that. Certainly not them. He said, I'm going to make you a black belt. I'm going to put you ahead of everybody else. I said, no, I didn't come here to teach. I came to learn. And so when Master Brown offered me the dubious honor of becoming a Tai Chi instructor, I had to sit back and say, because he had always quoted that thing out of the Tao Te Ching. Those who know don't say. Those who say don't know, those who can't do, teach. It was like he was condemning me to the 5th level of hell. Why would I want to teach? Anyway, I came up and finally reconciled it, and with his help, decided. I came to the conclusion, well, the thing is, I can't think of myself as being greater than anybody else in here. They can't just all call me Shifu. They can't all call me teacher. I got to call them Mr. Jones, Mrs. Campbell. I have to respect them as individuals and not get all hoity-toity and commit one of the 7 deadly sins of pride, because this man doesn't have it. He humbles himself before everybody and everything, he said. So, and it was only when I reached that point of understanding, well, I'm here not to teach, but to learn. And each one of these people here is going to be my teacher. I left 15 years ago, briefly, because I wanted to bring something new back to the school. I've been working on it now for 15 years. A new way of learning, a new way of teaching, a new way of retention, a way of creating this web concept where it's not just martial arts, as Master Brown has always said. That's why this speech is so brief tonight. He said everything I had to say. Isn't that amazing? But the whole idea, it takes us that long to perfect the smallest of things, because this is the attention to detail he's always drilled into us. Thank you very much.
not so long-winded. I don't know why he's like that. Thank you, Craig. Oh. It's Master Urban. Master Urban, you saw him on the slideshow there. I don't have to tell you what an amazing martial artist he was, because you could see that. He was also one of the most dependable martial artists. That means he did everything well, and I could depend on him to always be on the top of his game. Again, some of the stuff that you guys see in the movies, we actually lived in the 60s and 70s. When Master Lin opened up his first school on Georgia Avenue in Silver Spring, we had to follow tradition. We had to put a candle in the window in those days, right, Leon?
Yes, sir.
And anyone from any system, any style who did not believe that you were capable or should run a school had the right to come in and challenge you.
Wow.
Is that right, Leon? I see you pumping your fist.
Yes, sir.
And if you lost, they put your candle out, you closed your school down. I don't care if you had a 4-year, 5-year lease, your school was closed.
Wow.
And being the senior disciple, anybody came in, we had to deal with them. Is that right? Because they weren't challenging us, they were challenging Master Lin. And he had to fight anybody who challenged him. Except, as his senior disciples, you had to get through us first. And we fought everybody, every style that came through the door.
Wow.
When I started running the school without Mr. Lin at 6119 George Avenue, I made sure I was surrounded by a couple of warriors like that. Because I didn't want to have to fight all the time. And one of those people that I was always comfortable if I knew he was in the house was Master Urban. Because I knew nobody was getting through him. We talked about how limber he was with his kicks. And we talked about how fast his kicks were. But let me tell you how hard they were. He didn't have to hit you 3 or 4 times. If he caught you with a side kick, it was out. This was moving time. He was an amazing martial artist. I remember once being on 6119 George Ave, 5th and Kennedy Street. And I was teaching a black belt class with Master Urban and Jelani, Hops. Is that right? A bunch of guys like that. 3 Musketeers. The first one, you guys, you and Victor, Stephen, Kevin, was the next group. But it was a group like that in the school. And some man came falling through the door. I think he had been drinking. But he stood in the back of the school and just started yelling, "Dennis Brown, I want you." There was no candle in the window. And he just insisted on screaming. I kept teaching, thinking, let me ignore this man, because we're trying not to be like that anymore. And he kept yelling and yelling, and then he made the crazy mistake of stepping on the floor. Now see, back in those days, you guys, all the windows are wide open. Everybody watched every class. What they're not telling you is when they taught class, we built a huge wall across the front of the school. I saw you do like that. That nobody could see in. That's how hard the classes were. We didn't want anybody to see. I mean, parents, if you brought your kids to, or husband, you brought your wife, you brought your husband, you couldn't watch. You had to stand outside and listen. And if you opened the door to peek, the whole class, not me, the whole class would stop and look at you. It was that kind of craziness. Nobody came on the floor but a warrior. And this guy had stepped on the floor. So I had to approach him then. And I asked him, what is it that you want? He said, I am the reincarnation, I never forget it, of Bruce Lee and somebody else. And I've come to take you out. And I remember turning and looking back at the group, and I'm looking at all of these horses, because I'm talking about there was this level level of martial artists back there. I think he was like leading the group or something. And I said, you have got to be crazy. Because they had the Leon Gray type people back there. How many terms in the Corps?
Sir?
How many times in the Corps? I mean, you went over
3 tours in Vietnam.
3 tours?
Yes, sir.
And then SWAT?
19 years.
19 years SWAT?
Yes, sir.
And a Shaolin Wushu black belt. These guys are standing back there sweating. And he's saying, I'm here to get you. And I turned back and looked at these monsters and I said, somebody call the police. That's what I did. They said, but you get ready to hurt him? I said, no, ask the police to take him out because we don't want this man to get hurt in here. These guys were amazing fighters. Amazing people. Because outside the ring, they were the nicest folks you ever going to run into. Now, Bone was a little wild, he was young. Let's straighten that out. We didn't have to go to school and get it once or twice. I know a teacher called us once and said, we were told to call the Kung Fu school and ask your guys to come get him. So he's here at the school, he's surrounded by people, but ain't nobody gonna touch him. We'll be there in a few minutes now. Gotta go and bring him down. And we told him, you made a good decision there. Nobody approach him. He is the real deal. But he went on to become an amazing person. And I'm saying the martial arts does that. Master Irvin was the senior instructor at the school for a decade or more. And turned out probably some of the greatest martial arts students that came through our school in the 70s, 80s, for many, many years. Many of the top instructors, whether you talk about Master Seaban over there, or Luther, or any of the guys here that trained with him, will tell you that he was always there for every student. I mean, taught groups, taught privately, came up with the great Jeffrey Thurman. Those are real martial artists right there. And he's the last of his little group that's still in the school. Jeffrey's still in the school too. We used to have a saying back in the days that, I shouldn't say this, but I used to tell these guys, this is like the mafia. You don't ever get out. Once you join, you are always our student. Because martial arts schools are different. It's not about belts. Kung Fu schools are like family. Fu is like father. It's a father figure. There was no belt system. You were younger brothers and younger sisters, and you were expected to take care of them for the rest of their life. And Master Irvin will tell you for years, 10, 15, 20 years after some students were gone, I would call his house and say to him, where is this person? How's he doing? Have you heard from Naymena? Have you heard from this student? He'd go, and amazingly, he'd always go, well, he's living in California, sir, but he's doing really well. And I expected him to do that. He was the senior black belt. And he always knew, he always not only took care of their training, but he took care of the black belts. If I had a problem with a student